Good morning, Malcolm Nance. Getting ready for your congressional testimony, of course, on I assume the subject is terrorism, but specifically white supremacist terrorism.
Well, I think the technical term that we're going to be using today is insurrection.
Yes.
Insurrectionist. And believe me, I have a lot to say about it because, as I will announce on the Stephanie Miller Show, I wrote a book about this over the last 6 months, and I will give you the working title. The working title was "They Want to Kill Americans."
Wow. I would like you all to line up one at a time and kiss Malcolm Nance's ass for being right about everything and trying to sound the alarm, Malcolm. Everything you've talked about. I mean. And again, I don't know exactly what you're going to say to the Black Congressional Caucus here in a few minutes. But first of all, why was the head of the FBI or the acting attorney general not at this press conference yesterday? What did you think of this press conference?
I actually preferred that it was done that way. So they bring the Eye of Sauron over to find them out as they go to destroy the ring. Just send in some low-level minions, make it look like it's street-level arrest, but in fact, they are laying the groundwork for seditionist conspiracy. And based on what the U.S. attorney said, Donald Trump Jr.'s whole family, or Donald Trump's whole family, every person who spoke at that rally, everyone who helped organize that rally, including people like Charlie Kirk, who organized 80 buses to go up there.
Can I just throw a point in here? Yesterday, we played the audio of Sebastian Gorka yesterday. That was at Charlie Kirk's event 2 weeks ago.
Right.
They outlined the event, and that's where Charlie was recruiting people to come to this event.
Yes, this was a planned coup. They had a plan to throw this into the states to actually just to subvert our democracy, Malcolm. And so yesterday, you're right, the wording they use is the FBI is working with the U.S. attorney's offices across the country, crux of those being in D.C. We're looking at significant felony cases tied to sedition and conspiracy. So that wording, and I think other wording they use, you're right, does go to that this is going up higher, right?
It is. And let me tell you, as you know, I monitor right-wing communications and their organizational communication channels, their structures. And I started writing this book 6 months ago. And I swore I'd never want to write another Trump book. But I felt that I had to write this particular book because it was about how they were turning into not just some of them as terrorists, up and coming terrorists. They were creating an insurgency, a political insurgency and a paramilitary insurgency. Mm-hmm. And in fact, I had wrote that, that if Biden had lost, the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, the Boogaloo Boys, they would have become an unofficial paramilitary of the Trump campaign. They would have become the brown shirts. But now that Biden has won, they are going underground. They are sort of like Saddam Hussein's insurgents, the Saddam Fedayeen. At some point here, and the reason that I've shied away from the use of the word terrorist, though feel free to use it as rhetorically as possible if you feel you were terrorized, and that I've stuck to insurrectionist was the attack last week, right after the Stephanie Miller Show, where we talked about this, was an insurrection, an uprising, a violent uprising against the United States. Where they're moving to now is a long-term war, underground war against the United States, and that's an insurgency. And what's going to come out of that insurgency is a political arm where Trump and all of his minions keep trying to destabilize and delegitimize the Biden administration. Then will come paramilitary action and mob action, and finally, and most likely quickly, terrorist attacks by these.
Malcolm, I said this yesterday, this is obviously a critical, terrifying period, and the inauguration being a particular target. But I said, we're going to deal with this long after that. But I heard you on TV, I know Joy Reid asked you yesterday. I mean, a lot of us are saying, why not put this totally inside? Why not make it totally virtual? I mean, I keep saying, like, I get it, like, oh, we can't, make it look like we're scared of terrorists. It's like, counterpoint, who cares? Like, you seem to say that you were confident, even though there were elements of military and police that were involved in this insurrection. Tell us your feelings about the inauguration. Obviously, the FBI is warning about a lot of things.
The FBI is warning about a lot of things. They discuss some of the terrorist tactics. One of the things that I haven't heard about is the potential of indirect fire, which is what we call mortars, rockets, propane tanks that'll be lobbed in there just as distractions. But you can't guard against everything. But I feel very confident now that that the Capitol will be secure. It'll be an event-free thing, although I've read that there are 17 pro-Trump groups that have put in permit applications. They are blanketly all being denied. And I'm going to be having a discussion with the mayor of Washington, D.C., Muriel Bowser, soon to be Governor Muriel Bowser, I hope.
I hope, yeah.
And we're going to be discussing security there. So it's pretty secure in this city right now. However, I just want to give a warning out to our right-wing extremist friends, many of whom monitor the Stephanie Miller show while they're crying in their cups. There was an analogy that Admiral Yamamoto, the commander of Japanese forces, made when he attacked Pearl Harbor. And all of his battle commanders were just exuberant and were ready for the next fight. And Yamamoto said, all we have done here was awaken a sleeping giant.
Yeah.
That is what these right-wingers have done. If you've watched the videos, people are shouting them down at the airport, cheering when they're being kicked off of airplanes, shaming them, psychologically damaging them by calling them terrorists and vanilla ISIS. That is how you can all contribute to the recalibration of this. They are now all secession, one step close to secessionists. So now I have a distinct feeling of what it must have been like in Philadelphia after the South tried to break away. But these people are living amongst us. They are in every society. They're probably some of your neighbors, Stephanie, even right
family.
On that lane you live on. These are the people who defiantly still have the Trump signs outside and stop the steal signs. They need to be brought to account. And even if they weren't there, they supported it.
And we talked to Frank Filguzzi yesterday. We've obviously talked about the need for domestic terrorism laws. But right-wing extremists are using channels on the Encrypted Communication Act Telegram now to call for violence against government officials on Inauguration Day, with some extremists sharing knowledge of how to make, conceal, and use homemade guns and bombs. I'm not telling you, I know, I'm just telling our listeners. The messages are being posted in Telegram chat rooms where white supremacist content has been freely shared for months, but chatter on these channels has increased since obviously they've been kicked off other platforms. So this is a Dubai-based service that does little moderation of its content. So, Frank talked about like part of this going underground. Now we can't monitor as closely, right?
Well, yes and no. And, Frank's an FBI counterintelligence guy. I'm an NSA, signals intelligence guy. So for me, I prefer what we call channelization of enemy command and control. And that's where you knock down all their little nodes like Facebook and Parler and Twitter, and you move them to one channel where they think they're secure.
Okay.
Guys, no, I love monitoring people because people do not lie when they communicate with each other generally. When they're posting this stuff, they think that they have a secure vehicle to plot conspiracy. The FBI might want to inform them that Telegram is a foreign national-based platform.
Yeah.
Which the United States government has the right to monitor at any time. Even if there are American citizens on there, they can get warrants. And Telegram will be essentially a holding pen for all these people that are going to get arrested.
And Malcolm, you, as you are terrifying, and Twitter form as well. You said far-right extremists are using the Capitol attack to recruit new members, and you said evidence is revealing that murder cells and capture and kill teams were in that mob hunting politicians. Talk to us about that for a minute.
There were, and I really think we need to popularize the phrase murder cells. Okay, a murder cell is a terrorist organization or a body of people who flow in with mobs or, the street or whatever is happening. And they are an organized team who will go in there and would look for victims, certain victims. Capture and kill teams are the same thing. These guys, this mob went in there, they had zip ties, they had all of their military equipment. By the way, these were the Proud Boys, the Boogaloo Boys, Oath Keepers by the hundreds. Were there with their Oath Keeper shirts. All of these people are paramilitaries, and they intended to kidnap, capture, and kill many of the members of Congress. It would have been a bloodbath. And it would have had to have been a bloodbath because then Capitol Hill police would have had to have gone to full-scale open warfare, which means everybody. We would have lost hundreds.
So some of this we can count on their stupidity. You tweeted Ali Alexander is confessing to planning the attack on the U.S. and naming his co-conspirators, some of whom were Congress people, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
these people are so stupid because they're proud of what they did. Ali Alexander is this Ali Alexander Akbar. I think his name is Akbar. He is this right-wing extremist, and he was there. He had said that he had met and was communicating with 3 congressmen. He named them all in a video Facebook post out there. And now I just carbon copied it to the FBI.
Yep.
Along with everybody else. I mean, this man, by the way, he's in hiding. He's in hiding.
Yeah, I know, as all cowards are. So speaking of the FBI, so obviously this story, the day before the riot, the FBI office in Virginia issued an explicit internal warning that extremists were preparing to travel to Washington to commit violence and war. This is an internal document, right? The Washington Post got that contradicts them saying they had no intelligence indicating any pro-Trump protest plan to do harm. A situational information report, you know what that is, I guess, approved for release the day before the U.S. Capitol riot, painted a dire portrait of dangerous plans, including individuals sharing a map of the complex's tunnels, possible rally points for conspirators to meet. Right? We read this, the thread that said, "Be ready to fight. Congress needs to hear glass breaking, doors being kicked in, blood from their BLM and Pantifa slave soldiers being spilled. Get violent. Stop calling it a march or a rally or a protest. Go there ready for war. We get our president or we die." We're going to find out about it. I mean, there's a lot of cover your ass going on right now, right? About who warned who about what and what the F happened here.
One thing about intelligence, we can develop it, we can collect it, we can disseminate it. But as the old CIA saying is, you can develop intelligence, but you can't make them think. We give that to the consumer. Unfortunately, the consumer was the person who was leading the insurrection.
Yeah.
So if you wonder why there was limited security at the Capitol, it was just the regular day watch. Normally, they would have all 3 watch sections there, 2,300 cops.
There were 50 DHS agents staged near the Capitol that weren't deployed in time to help. They were just waiting there, right?
Yep. Well, a lot of that happens when you think white people are benign and that this is the president's supporters and they are no different than an Iowa high school tour group. Then now you see it. It's been exposed. You have your insurrectionists. These are the enemies of the United States now. Shame them when you see them.
Malcolm, real quick, before we go, we're long, but you have said, and I heard you say it again yesterday on TV, the military will not be involved in this. The Joint Chiefs obviously reminded American forces yesterday of their oath to defend the Constitution and used some pretty strong language about it. So you remain confident about that, correct?
Yeah. That letter yesterday will become one of the most key historic documents in U.S. military history. Equal to George Washington, maybe a little less, but similar to George Washington's Newburgh Address when he stopped the army from rebelling in the American Revolution. That was a call to arms. My favorite part, he says, we stand against insurrectionists and sedition. It's like, bang.
Damn. Okay.
Just put it on the table, y'all. they ain't going to stand for this.
All right, you run along to your second priority, Congress now. Go testify to Congress. Thanks.
Yes.
Thanks for your number one priority. Love you, Malcolm.
Thank you, Malcolm.
Thank you, Malcolm.
All right.